Barry had this idea. It's too bad that not everybody gets to see this stuff. So what he did was kind of invite people the opportunity to present some of those presentations at the fall seminar here locally. So over the next 3 weeks, we're going to have 3 more presentations after this. Starting next week, they're going to be at 8 p.m. because of, boards doing local sessions with their rules clinics. We're going to start an hour later. Hopefully people can stay up for those, but please check them all out and participate when possible. Tonight, I'd like to start off by just asking a question. And if Bob could put this up on the Zoom question, we're going to ask you your questions, get your feedback. In a crew of 2, the lead official is primarily responsible for all block charge plays in the free throw lane area. Is this correct? So go ahead and answer that question. We'll see what people's assessment of this question is, and that'll help us with the presentation. I have 4 or 5 questions ready for you guys. I want to have it a little more interactive tonight. We'll leave that up for like 20 seconds and we'll get going. Bob, are you getting responses?
Yep, we are up to 40 out of 69 people. So let's give it a couple more seconds here. And
Don McGilvery is asking, how do we answer?
I'm hoping you just click on the answer, I think.
Yeah, I think you can.
Should be a circle there that says answer, I think.
Hopefully you're seeing it on my screen.
I'm just getting, huh?
Can you see it on my screen? You click the button and hit submit.
Yeah, a window popped up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should pop up on your screen. Just you hit the answer and say submit is my. I just get the results on mine, so I'm not. Haven't been on the other end of it.
All right, we're going to get going then. So I think we get enough responses. We're going to address that situation in a second. The plan for tonight is this. We're going to go through a couple different scenarios. First, we're going to talk about block charge coverage. Then we're going to talk about pass crash coverage. Then we're going to talk about the importance of resolving double whistles. And we're going to end up, probably I want to spend most of my time on floor mechanics and position adjustments. Why this topic is so important is, up until about 3 years ago, none of this information was really in our manual. And about 3 years ago, we had a presentation at the fall seminar by a guy named Dan Shepherdson out of Vermont. And he did like a great presentation on crew of 2 and crew of 3 floor mechanics on these play situations. Since then, we've put them in our manual, so they're pretty new. And there's a lot of myths out there on how to handle these situations. The first myth is that first question we just asked you. I've heard that in the pregame before. I've heard, hey, this is how we handle this situation. So we're going to talk about what the reality is in some of these scenarios as we go forward. Let's start off with block charge. First and foremost, I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but to understand our block charge coverage, you have to understand the difference between a primary defender and a secondary defender. In our manual, we define primary defenders as a player who initially guards a player with the ball. Okay, that's the initial. The secondary defender is the teammate who attempts to help the primary defender most of the time when the primary defender has been beaten. And if you look at this scenario here, you see number 5's got the ball. He's initially guarded by this player. That's the primary. As he beats the defender, now a secondary defender comes out of nowhere and tries to guard the player. All right, so that's the concept between primary and secondary. Our coverages change based on whether the play involves a primary or a secondary defender. So it's a very important concept. All right, throughout this presentation, you'll see different colors. These match our manual. If you look in your eyeball manual, you'll see green colors, red colors, and blues. Those actually have a designation. Anytime you see red, it's a center. Every time you see green, it's the lead. Anytime you see blue, it's a trail. So that'll hold true throughout this presentation. So from our manual, we know that the lead has primary coverage on all block charge plays in the lane in a crew of 2. Okay? In a crew of 2, they have all coverage in the lane. The lane is the leads. And we'll talk about why in a little while. Now, one of the key concepts that we've done in the manual over the last couple of years is we have made the lead primarily responsible for identifying secondary defenders in the lane area. So if a play involves a secondary defender, it involves these players here. You're going to play driving to the basket. If you have a secondary defender, it is the lead's responsibility to make that ruling. Now, what you have on a trail in a crew of 2 You've also got that primary defender. If there's contact on that ball handle as the ball goes to the basket, the trail or the outside official in this situation would have primary responsibility for that kind of contact, the body bumping, the hand checking, that kind of thing, or the violation maybe. So we try to separate those responsibilities as much as we can. But the most important concept in this slide is understanding that the lead can't be a ball watcher. They need to be out there identifying these potential secondary defenders in case this play develops. Now, let's go to crew of three real quick. Let's compare the crew of two versus crew of three. In a crew of three, the lead has the primary responsibility of block charge plays on a primary defender on their side of basket line. Okay, you can see the green there, it's only covering half the lane. So the lead has primary coverage on primary defenders on their side of the basket line. So that leaves the center to handle primary defenders on their side of the basket line. When it comes to secondary defenders, just like a crew of two, if it involves a secondary defender in the lane, it's going to be the lead's ruling. So we went through that very quickly. Let's summarize. All right, so let's start off with primary defenders in a crew of two. Who has it? Hopefully, if you're out there, you're paying attention, you understand the concept. That would be the lead's primary responsibility to take care of that ruling. If you're talking about a secondary defender, a crew of two, who has that lane area? Again, it's the lead. If you're talking about a secondary defender and a crew of three, who has the lane area? That would be the lead. And if you have primary defenders, crew of three, we split the lane in half. All right. So basically, to make this as simple as possible, the lead has that lane area, both crew of two, crew of three, except for primary defenders across the basket line. And we'll talk about why the difference here in a second. So you see this difference. If you're out there, you got to be wondering why. Why on earth would we make a difference between a trail and two-person, a center and three-person? Here's the reason why. Generally, in a crew of three, our centers are in good position to make the ruling. Generally, in a crew of two, if you watch enough basketball, you'll notice our trail officials aren't very aggressive. They're often hanging out by the division line, and they're not in a good enough angle to take this play on a consistent basis. So this has come down to the four coordinators talking about these plays and realizing that on a typical night, our trail is not in position to take the play. Now, keep in mind, our manual is just a guide. If you're working with someone who can keep up with the play, who's engaged, going to be at that initial starting position, which is the 28-foot mark, and they can be in that play, this is something you can handle in your pregame. You may say, hey, you know what? If I'm a trail tonight, I'm going to take this play across basket line. So we can handle it the same way if you want. But typically in our manual, we make a distinction between crew of three and a crew of two. Hopefully that makes sense to people. But really, this whole concept is make sure you understand, as far as trying to adjudicate these plays, that lane area is primarily the responsible of the lead. Notice we didn't say exclusively. We said primarily. There are exceptions. So we try to reduce the amount of double whistles by understanding who's primarily responsible. If I'm a trail official and I see a block charge situation in the lane area, and I know the lead's primary responsible and they don't have it, I'll come in late, okay, and I'll take that play. So keep in mind, these are just concepts of how to reduce those double whistles and make sure we don't have those uncomfortable situations. All right, moving on. What about plays outside the lane? This is pretty simple. If the plays happen outside the lane, we defer to primary coverage areas. So it's really simple. If the play happens in your primary coverage area, it doesn't matter if it's primary or secondary, we're going to let you take that play if you're available to do so. Again, if there's people on the primary don't have it, and someone else on the crew does have it, you can extend and get that play when necessary. But understanding who's primarily responsible will help us reduce those double whistle situations. Let's talk about some play situations. Let's actually play this out a little bit and show you how they develop. These play situations are the ideal scenarios. There are some difficult scenarios that make these concepts a little challenging, but these are the ideal scenarios. Let's start with secondary defenders in our crew of two. Okay, got a player with the ball up here at the top of the arc. They go to the basket. A secondary defender takes a charge on that side of basket line. Who's got that play? That would be the lead. Okay, easy play. It's right in front of him. He's got all secondary defenders. Makes it simple. Now the same is also true even if the play is on the opposite side of the lane. Obviously, they got to a position adjust to make sure they're in a position to see this play, but secondary defenders are there on either side of the lane. This is the tough one. This is the hard one to get an angle on. But even in a crew of two, they're primarily responsible for that lane area. All right, let's talk about outside the lane. If this happens outside the lane, then the trail can take that play. All right, and here's our picture from the manual. This mirrors that same picture in the manual. It's page 47, and you'll see a big yellow box there. And it says a primary note is one purpose of these specific guidelines of officiating primary and secondary defenders is to reduce the number of double whistles that occasionally happen during drives to the basket. That's the whole purpose behind these concepts. Let's talk about primary defenders crew of two. These don't happen that often. You know, when I tried to pull this presentation together, I tried to find film of primary defenders. I would say 95% of the plays that I saw, of hundreds of games that I've watched over the last couple of years, are secondary defenders. So we have to really understand that as a lead, how important that is. But if the primary defender does take a charge, it's pretty simple. On that side of the lane, the lead has it. On the opposite side of the lane, the lead still has it. Okay, position adjust, make sure they see it. If it's outside the lane, now the trail can get involved. This kind of play doesn't happen too often, but if it's outside the lane, we definitely defer to primary coverage area. Again, this is our picture from the manual, page 46. If you want further review, please review these slides. These are there for you in the manual. Let's talk about secondary defenders crew of three. Again, the lead is primarily responsible for identifying these players in the lane. So if it develops across the lane right in his lap, he's going to take that play. But the same is also true on the opposite side of the lane. Position adjust, make sure you see it, take the play. You're primarily responsible. And here's a play that happens just like that. It's across the lane. Now, one thing we want to make perfectly clear, we want our leads outside the lane. Some of our officials like to officiate in the lane. You end up being straight line on these plays. So make sure you get outside the lane and have that angle into the lane. So take that step out. Keep in mind that a manual change this year, we're getting rid of that extended arm with a fist. Okay, everything is going to be player control. That wasn't acceptable even last year. We don't throw that. We didn't have a punch signal or an extended arm with a fist signal with a player control anyway. But that signal's now gone away. So both player control fouls and team control fouls are done with a hand behind the head this season. So make sure you understand that. We'll get rid of that signal. Everything will be this signal from this season forward. All right. So let's talk about secondary defenders crew of three. Now, we happen outside the lane. I don't know if you guys are members of RefQuest, but we had this exact scenario this week in RefQuest in a play where the play was outside the lane. This is perfectly acceptable for the center to take the play on a secondary defender outside the lane. All right, and there again is our photograph from our manual. Please refer to this if you want further study on that issue. Primary defenders, again, doesn't happen much, but they do, pretty straightforward. Your side of the lane, lead side of the lane, you take it. If it's center side of the lane, the center takes it. Okay, and lastly, outside, primary coverage area is the default coverage on that, and the center would take it. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's get into pass crash coverage. All right, I think we got a poll question here. All right, we got a poll question. Bob, you gonna put that up for us? Yep. In a crew of two, the proper pass crash coverage has the trail stay with the pass and the lead take the crash. I'll give you like 30 seconds to answer that.
Okay, should be out there.
This one here, I'd actually like to hear the results. I should have asked that in the first one. Did you get the results of the first one, Bob?
Yeah, yep. Hold on a second. I'll get it back up there for you. Oops, I guess I can't have.
No, don't worry about it. This one will be important.
All right, yeah, I'll show you the results after.
Okay. In a crew of two, the proper pass crash coverage has the trail stay with the pass and the lead take the crash. I have actually heard this in a pregame conference. This has been a way we've covered this in the past in some games. Is it correct by manual?
All right, so I've got 60 out of 77. I guess we'll stop. No
All
more.
right, let's do the results.
All right, share results. There you go.
62% said yes. Now, in this particular question, I like the 38% better. If you answered no on this, you're actually correct. This is one of the biggest myths we have in these coverages. That's why this is so important. I'm glad you guys are tuned in tonight because you can actually evolve from this and learn how to handle it. This works perfectly in one scenario. It doesn't work so good in another scenario. So when the four coordinators started talking about this issue, we tried to create overarching concepts that help us be accurate more often and be more universal in our coverage. So we changed it. We did a little thing this way. Pass crash principles, both crew of two, crew of three. So it's a beautiful thing. They handle both crew of two, crew of three. The direction of the pass dictates the coverage on plays in the free throw lane area. If the pass ball is toward an official, that official is responsible for the pass, okay? So the player receiving the ball and their defenders. If the pass goes away from you, you're responsible for the crash. So it's really quite simple, both crew of two, crew of three. If it's coming toward you, you've got to take that activity. If it goes away from you, you've got to take the crash. Now, this crosses primary coverage areas. This may mean in a crew of three, the center official may have to rule across the lane and right in front of the lead. This may mean in a crew of two that the trail needs to extend right in front of the lead. The lead may be happening right in their lap. But in that scenario, the lead will have to follow the pass. Let's cover some of those concepts. Let's take a look at the scenario. You have a player driving the lane. They pass the ball toward the sideline. Okay, there's the crash. When you look at this graphic, it becomes pretty obvious that the most effective way to cover this play is to have the trail take the pass and the lead take the crash. Okay, so that's a pretty easy scenario. What about the opposite? Now we have it going the other way. The pass goes toward the lead takes the pass, the trail takes the crash. Hopefully that makes sense. So that question we just asked a minute ago works great in one scenario. It wouldn't work so good in the other. So this would be a situation where if the trail took the pass, they would be looking right past the crash over into the corner, and the lead would take the crash. It's not really effective. So
PJ,
hopefully that's a
I
chance
ask a
to evolve
question?
with officials. All
Can I
right.
ask a question while you have that graphic up?
George, what's going on, George?
In this case, the trail has refereed the player with the ball into the lane.
Yep.
Responsibility for the primary defender.
Yep.
How does he know when the secondary defender set up? How does he know, comparing when the player went airborne?
That's a great question because this does contradict what we just talked about. It's just a matter of you would have a hard time. Hopefully he does have it. But what we try to do, the reason we do this is to make sure we don't have double whistles. And if, that's one of those scenarios where, okay, you have the crash, you may blow the whistle. Hopefully you pick that player up. That's a great question. But that's really, to be effective, you got to pick that player up, especially if the secondary defender. Yeah, good question. Yeah. Any other questions? And I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, these plays don't develop in these ideal situations either. As I put this presentation together, pass crash plays happen all over the court. And there are sometimes, you got to admit, there are sometimes either the trail or the lead, or sometimes the center crew of three. You may have it all. You might have everything. These are ideal scenarios. But we really want to teach these concepts and try to get rid of some of those myths. That's a great question by George. Hopefully in these scenarios, the trail would have an opportunity to figure out if that secondary defender had to leave a guard position. Again, crew of two, our trails often aren't positioned where this official is here. Often they're deep by the divisional line, and this whole thing will fall into the lead's lap. Hopefully that's not the case in your games. There's our graphic from the manual, page 48. Give you a chance to study that if you need it. Let's take a look at this scenario. I'm going to ask you some questions about it, so pay attention. Here's going to be a transition pass crash play. The lead's going to make a ruling. I'm going to ask you if you agree with the ruling, and then I'm going to ask you a secondary question after we understand that part of the play. Whoops. Here's the player with the ball, driving in the lane, passes, then there's a crash. All right, I'll let you see it one more time. Notice what the lead ruled. Let's watch this again. All right, notice the signaling. All right, so here's the poll question. The official rules of blocking foul in this play. Was the official correct? Yes or no? Bob, let me know when you get like 50 or 60 responses.
Yeah, we're doing well on this one. We're almost up to, there we go. Pretty good. We got 88 of the responses. Here we go. There you go.
I like it. I like it. Here's a scenario where I actually like the majority, 87%. Now, the 13%, are there volleyball classes starting soon? We might want to have them take it up a different sport. This guy gets run over pretty good. All right. If you look at this scenario again, let's go back and just look at this scenario. This presentation isn't about rules per se, but boy, this defender, he's not moving forward. He pretty much takes the contact right square in the torso. I don't know what would cause the official to rule this to be a blocking foul. That looked pretty square to me. But considering that he called a blocking foul, does the goal count in this play? This is a question we're going to have a poll question. Should the goal count if this is a blocking foul? And Bob, you gonna put that up?
Yep.
There you go. Would you count the goal? How we doing, Bob?
Yeah, a couple of late stragglers, but
All right.
there we go. That
All
looks
right.
about it. Looks like it stopped.
Some of the 60 said yes, 40 said no. Now, my sneaking suspicion is because I told you to focus on the block charge, that the question of whether the goal should count probably surprised you a little bit. And here's my reason for asking. When we talk about past crash plays, I think a lot of us assume that we're going to have fouls on the offense. It'd be either a player control foul or a team control foul. When you have fouls by the defense, all of a sudden that pesky little continuous motion rule comes into play. So we have to be mentally prepared that those try for goals matter. And these concepts are designed to make sure we have one person take the crash, one person take the pass. That way we can assess this activity and rule accurately. This 60-40 breakdown is a problem for us because if we're not focused on this play accurately, we're not going to be sure if the goal should have counted. I think by looking at this play, I'll let you show it more time. I think this crash might have happened just a hair before the try started. See the foul here? I think he starts his try just a hair after that. So probably continuous motion might not apply to this play. But again, the moral to this story is if we rule blocking fouls on these plays, we better have an understanding where the continuous motion applies. So hopefully you got that from there. Glad to have a 60-40 split. Now let's take a look at this play. Do these officials follow proper procedure? All right. We've got a double whistle on this play. Crew of two, play in the lane, a kick out to the sideline, and guess what? Both officials are looking at the crash. Watch number 11 here. Does this try go in? Of course it does. Of course it does. Now, if this crew got together and really talked about it, would they be 100% sure that this goal would count or not count? So again, by not following proper procedure, we've got a 3-point goal. Does it count? We may not know for sure, and that's a very uneasy feeling when you're in these situations. So very important in this situation, the lead should have followed the pass, listen for the whistle, have an idea where the ball was when that whistle went off, so we can make that ruling. Very important concept. All right, Trail does a great job here. We're going to talk about double whistles in a second. Does a great job of just stopping the clock, not tipping his hand as far as what he had. He may have a block on this. You'd never know based on what he did. So at least we did that right. The signaling by the lead is not appropriate. He comes out. That's a poor cancel goal signal, and he probably wasn't even cancel. He's probably just saying no at any point. That's not proper signaling. So keep that in mind as you think about your games this year. Use proper coverage. Let's talk about pass crash coverage crew of 3. All right, you got to play in the lane. The pass goes toward the center. Hopefully this makes sense to you now. Okay, the ball goes toward the center takes the pass. The lead or the trail can take this crash depending where it is in the lane. I'm going to say 9% of the time it's going to be the lead, but if this play happens near the free throw line and the lead is obstructed, the trail can definitely help it out. The trail probably should be the last person in this scenario. So it's going to be primarily lead because they're dealing with secondary defenders and they have that assessment anyway, but the trail can definitely help out depending on where it happens. They should be late to the party though. If we have a play where the pass goes toward the trail sideline, this is simple. Okay, the center takes the crash and the trail takes the pass. All right, pretty easy. Lead stays focused in the lane area. Let's take a look at this. One of the things we want to make sure we understand is passing activity is a golden opportunity to make position adjustments. As this pass goes toward the center, that center should make that position adjustment to make sure they can look at that closeout. Don't accept that straight line position, okay? So make that position adjustment just a step or two so you can see that closeout by defenders heading toward the jump shooter. Now the lead and trail do a fantastic job. First of all, let's talk about the trail's hustle and transition. That's a state tournament official right there. Staying engaged, getting up to the initial starting position and getting a chance to be involved in this play. The lead correctly takes this play because it's in the lane and the ball was passed toward the center. So this is the lead's play to make the ruling on, and the center should take the pass. Now we don't like the lead being in the lane that way. It should be outside the lane a little bit. But secondarily, if the trail's going to hustle this way, if for some reason the lead was obscured, didn't have a ruling, they can make this ruling as well. So that's really proper crew of 3 coverage. But understand, we really want you to use passing activity to make position adjustments. That center should never have accepted that straight line position and moved as that pass was in play. That's their primary responsibility. Okay, there's a picture from the manual. Let's talk about double and multiple whistles. This is a new term in our manual this year. We're talking about multiple whistles. We've tried to cover it. We're going to change the manual around quite a bit. Next when you see your manual, there's probably going to be just one manual. It's going to be both crew of 2, crew of 3 intermingled a little bit. So we're going to start using terminology that we can use that can be more universal. So we're going to start talking about double. Hopefully you don't have what we used to call triple whistles. We don't want to. We're going to try to reduce this as much as we can. But some of the things we want to talk about in double whistles is how to avoid them first of all, but if we do have them, how to resolve them effectively. First and foremost, one purpose of specific guidelines for block charge and pass crash coverage is to reduce the double whistles that occur in the lane, yes or no. All right? If you're paying attention, you should be able to get this one right. One purpose of the specific guidelines for block charge and pass crash coverage is to reduce the number of double whistles in the lane. It should be 100%. Bob, if anybody gets this wrong, kick them out of the class.
Well, yeah, I think you'll be happy with the results.
All right. I still want to kick those 13% that call blocking fouls in that pass crash play, but we'll keep you in. Good job. So you paid attention. You got one concept tonight. That's the primary purpose of these guidelines. Here's the pictures from the guidelines from the manual, both crew of 2, crew of 3. Very important to understand that these boxes right here, and the language in them came from Jeff Jewett from Board 71 out in Arizona. He wrote those and we put them in the manual. We're very happy with them. Hopefully you guys, if you don't recognize Jeff Jewett's name, very prominent official from Maine, used to be the Board 20 interpreter. be with us next week to talk about contact. Hopefully you check that out. But this is where we put those in to make sure we understand those guidelines. Now, watch, this is a crew of two situation. Watch this play and focus on the trail. Does the trail have an angle on this play? And what does he do to adjudicate this play? Did the trail have a good angle? The trail sees this play. The trail's a great angle. But what does he do? He recognizes that this play is primarily responsible for the lead, sees the lead has it, and doesn't make that mistake of blowing the whistle. We already have a play to cover. We already have an official in position to cover. Now, if for some reason the lead didn't have this play and he was obscured, had obstructed, now the trail comes in. Okay. We'll point out real quickly that I don't know what's going on in the bench area, but in this scenario, probably not a good idea for the trail official to turn his back on players, especially with the lead heading toward the table. So we saw that as well. But really good discipline here, not having that double whistle. One of the best things you can do is avoid the double whistles whenever possible. All right. When we do have double whistles, we should make eye contact. All right. That's the step number one in our manual as far as our foul procedures. You sound the whistle. You really should have an understanding of someone else has a whistle. You got loud gyms, you got confusion. It doesn't take but a second to kind of look out of the corner of your eye and make sure no one has their arm raised. Now, we're lucky in the state of Maine that we have really good signals here. So most of our people, I'd say 99% of our people are really good at stopping the clock. So when you stop the clock, you can at least look around real quick and see if someone else has a signal. That'll help key whether you should be taking the ruling or not. Now, the officials should hold that stop the clock signal and not give a preliminary signal, player control, or block. If we've got a double whistle and we've got two officials in the air, we don't want you to be in a hurry. Okay? People say you got to sell the call. We don't sell calls. We try to make accurate rulings. So there's no sense to be emphatic. There's no sense to be in a hurry. What we're going to do is we're going to hold that stop clock signal, and we're going to resolve it this way. The official who's ruling within their primary coverage area should generally be responsible for the ruling. If I'm the lead and I'm in a crew of two and the trail and I both have a double whistle and it's coming toward me, it's in my primary, it's my ruling. If we stop the clock at the same time and we're very confident we get the same thing, probably the trail should stop and defer to whoever's primary responsible. Now, if that's not the case, let's just say, for example, that with the secondary official, the one ruling outside the primary, they have information, they feel like they've got something that's really important, they can come in strong and actually communicate with the primary official that they've got information. Once they figure out what the ruling is, if we have a block charge situation, whatever decision we make, we're going to go with the official. If I have player control and the trail has the block, if we decide it's a blocking foul, they have the block, they're going to signal. So either official can signal depending on the ruling, but whoever's the ruling they decide should take it, whoever made that particular ruling. All right. Here's a situation where we've got a crew of three, we have a double whistle, and the center does a really good job of recognizing that this is not her primary, this is the lead. Notice the lead looking right at the center, makes eye contact, sees the center drop, and then takes the ruling. This is really good officiating. So we'd like to avoid this double whistle if possible, but once we do, we recognize it. This is an effective way to reduce double whistles. The center official does a great job deferring to the lead official on the play. I wish she'd be that good deferring to things at home, but she's not. For those who don't know, that's my wife. I like to make fun of her whenever I can. Let's take a look at Patrick on this play. We got Patrick on this side. He is the trail official. We got Chris Thornton on the opposite side, the center official. Watch how this play develops. Okay, we got an little push off with the ball handler. I think both officials have player control in this play, but you'd never know by Patrick's signaling. He sees the push off, he reacts to it, he holds, he sees Chris take care of it, and then he drops. Very good signaling here, very good discipline. This is the kind of thing that we want to do. We'd like to avoid it again, but when we have it, understanding how to resolve those double whistles effectively is very important. Great job on that play. Now, this is the reason why it's important. This is why eye contact is so important. You're going to have a lead official on this side and the center official on that side. This is a crew of three example. Watch what these officials do. Tough play in the lane. The lead rules player control. The center rules block. And watch the center's face when he sees the lead go to the table to report the foul after he signaled block. He's signaling block. Next thing you know, that lead's heading to the table. All right. Now I don't know. I got Barry and Clay on the call tonight. If this was a tournament game in the state of Maine, are we advancing these officials to the next round? I mean, this is poor eye contact. This is something that neither official was aware what the other official was doing. This is embarrassing. We have no choice in this situation. Once this center official gets over the shock of seeing the lead go to the table, they got to get together and say, by the way, I just signaled block, you signaled player control. We've got our double foul situation. That's the only thing you can do once both people signal. So if you're going to be poor at the side of fouls, get good at the double foul rule because you're going to need it. This is poor signaling, and that's what happens in those situations. Take a look at this play. This is a crew of two situation. Get the lead here, trail there. We're going to have a pass crash play in the lane. Watch both officials. Pass crash, the trail goes player control, the lead goes player control. They both agree. But what happens? At least they agreed on the ruling. But neither one of them knows the other signal, and they both go to the scorer's table to signal the score. I wonder how many fouls the scorer recorded on this play. I wonder if the scorer knows who to look at. Okay? So again, you got to make eye contact and avoid some of these embarrassing situations. These officials both reported the score and didn't know the other official reported. So try to avoid those situations with good eye contact. All right, positioning and position adjustments. We do a lot of work on the manual, and this year was no exception. We've got some new things in there this year. Really want Maine officials to know. First and foremost, we're really going to focus on lead initial starting positions. I had the pleasure of watching a ton of games in northern Maine a couple years ago and before the pandemic, and they do a ton of three-person officiating, ton. They do a great job at it. But one of the things I noticed, and probably one of the inspirations for this slide, was we have a lot of officials that are lead that always head down the court and start wide. They always start in the A position, regardless where the ball is. And really, to be effective, especially in a crew of three, you've got to make a decision based on ball location. This is the manual on page 32. There's also one in the crew of three manual, page 152. So you'll see the numbers. You see the red arrows. So they're numbered 1, 2, and 3. They correlate with the corresponding position that the lead should end up in. If the ball is wide, number one, if the ball is wide on the lead sideline, we want the lead wide. If the ball is in the middle of the court, like number 2 here, we want the lead to split the difference between A and B, okay? We want you to be in the B-ish position. That way, you're a step away from A, you're a step or 2 away from close down, depending on where the ball goes. And if the ball happens to be on the opposite sideline, way on the opposite sideline, it is okay for the lead to cut the corner and go directly to that B position. Now, we don't want leads to rotate and tell all officials from the front court, but we want you in a position to rotate as fast as soon as possible. Once the crew's in the front court, if the play is developing across the lane, we want you there. Time and time again during 2020, watching basketball games, we were late to rotate because we always started wide. So really, we have a lot of officials that need to make this decision a little more effectively so they can put the crew in the best position. When you're the lead official in a crew of 3, you're the captain of the ship. And if we've got a poor captain, we're going to have poor coverage all over the court. So if you're not in good position, our crew's out of position, and we want you to be in position to make effective position adjustments to make sure we're in optimum position as much as possible. Very important change. Other change we made this year, we actually put in the manual, we want you to be 3 or 4 feet behind the end line. Now, we all know we have some small rural courts that you may not have 3 or 4 feet. Obviously, unless you can get an excavator, you're not going to be able to do that in some of those gymnasiums. But if you have it, use it. Try to get off the end line. Far too often, we have our leads with their toes right on the end line. Get back. They'll increase that vertical cone of vision, and it'll increase that horizontal cone of vision. Actually, this is vertical, that's horizontal. We're getting backwards. All right, so make sure you get off there and get some depth, and make sure you increase that cone of vision. All right, there you go, 3 or 4 feet. Now, another one thing we put in, we really want the lead to mirror the ball. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. We have that ABC concept. We've been talking about this for years. Now, the position adjustment we're excellent at is the close down. When the ball goes from wide to the middle of the court, we're very good at closing down. I'd give you an A+ for closing down. As far as when the ball goes across basket line, it comes time to rotate, we're probably in about a B- range. We probably don't rotate when we should, and sometimes we miss opportunities, and sometimes we have officials that try to go from A to C. If you're going to rotate, you're going to be effective at rotating. You should make the decision to rotate from the B position. So your first movement is go to A to B and stop, evaluate. Probably the second thing I noticed from games of 2020 is we are so reluctant to abort a bad rotation. I bet you I wrote that down 150 times. You got someone going from B to C, the ball reverses. You don't need to complete it. You can go back, okay? So make sure you understand you can abort a bad rotation. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So the one position adjustment we're not good at is this adjustment, okay? The ball went from sideline to the middle of the court. We close down from A to B. Now the ball comes back wide. This is the position adjustment we're not making. We've got a lot of officials that fall in love with that close down position and stay at the B position. And what does that cause? That causes a situation where you're looking inside out, you're looking to the sideline, and you're not effective. Remember earlier in the presentation, we said you got to be in position to see those secondary defenders. We want you wide when these plays develop so you can see that secondary defender and make an accurate ruling. This is called lengthening the play. If you can see that secondary defender and understand how they're coming into position, you're going to have more time to assess their legality of their guarded position and make an accurate ruling. If you're in a closed down position here, as you turn your head, that crash is going to happen, and you're not going to have an accurate assessment, and you may miss that ruling because you didn't give yourself the opportunity to see that defender. Very important concept. All right. Now, lastly, we put this right in the manual. We wrote it right in. If you are in the closed down position, which is the B position, when a try occurs or when a drive to the basket occurs on your side of the basket line, we want you to position adjustment toward the sideline. Okay? You're in a closed down position. This ball handler drives the lane. We want you to move. And here's why. If you stay in the closed down position, oftentimes you're going to be seeing the backs of the defender. We want you to position wide and get an angle on that play. So again, if a try occurs or a drive to the basket occurs on your side of the basket line, by manual, we want you to position adjust toward the sideline and get an angle toward the lane. Okay? Here's a good example of that. Let's watch Kevin Mansfield from board 111 here. Number 30 is going to get the ball and drive the lane. Watch his position adjustment. This is a crew of 2 game. All right? He goes wide. That gives him the opportunity to see the secondary defender and make a ruling. Think about seeing this play from the close down position. It would look a lot different. You wouldn't have that time to assess that secondary defender. So crew of 2, crew of 3, if you have a drive on your side of the lane, get wide and try to make sure you can identify those secondary defenders. Here's a play on crew of 3. Look how the lead is looking inside out. He's inside the ball. He doesn't see the secondary defender. That secondary defender gets to the spot first, is perfectly vertical, gets run over by a freight train, and he calls a blocking foul. He did not see this secondary defender until the contact happened. And as a result, he didn't have an accurate assessment of the legality. What we want you to do is get wide. Instead of looking inside out, make the position adjustment wide. Again, in this scenario, crew of 3, the lead has very little responsibility for the play developing. That trail is going to take care of it. He should get wide, identify the secondary defender, and anticipate that block charge situation. If there's a hand check on this play, the trail has it. If there's a travel on the play, the trail has it. If there's any body bumping, the trail has it. The lead and a crew of 3 is free to invest that time in the lane area and make sure the secondary defender is accurately assessed as far as their guarding position. So again, that's in our manual. Here's a crew of 3 situation. The lead is looking inside out. This is a poor use of your time right here. We've already got a trail that can handle the ball to the sideline. The lead should not be looking at it. All right, the lead should get wide, see where those secondary defenders are coming from, and assess this play and make a ruling from that case. This guy actually gets it right, okay, but he still would have been a lot better off if he'd gotten wide and saw that secondary defender come in and take this charge. Again, looking wide, if you're looking inside out, you're not doing it right. Get wide, look toward the lane, and take care of that secondary defender. I think I beat that horse pretty good. His crew of 2 situation, again, inside out, get wide, see the secondary defender. Another situation that we added to our manual. The lead should move quickly across the lane extended area and continue monitoring any activity, existing or potential matchups in the lane. Okay, this is a biggie. So many officials, when you're in the lead and you rotate, has a natural tendency to say, hey, the ball's over there, and look at the ball the entire time that you're moving across the lane. If you're moving across the lane, you acknowledge, yes, the ball is over there, okay? This is a crew of 3 concept, by the way, crew of 3. Okay, the ball's over there, but the center and the new trail is gonna take care of that ball, and as you rotate, you should stay focused on the lane area. As you look at this official right here, this lead official down here on the end line, he's rotating right now. He's gone from B, he's heading towards C. Where's his eyes right now? Okay, his eyes are toward the ball handler. What he should be focused on is these potential secondary defenders in the lane. Okay, so he looks wide. Now the ball goes to the top of the key. He's still looking at the ball. The play develops him. The first time he sees this defender is when the contact happens. All right, this is a problem. He should be investing off ball. There's no bigger mechanic killer that we have in our manual than a ball watcher. All right, he may have got this play right, but he got it right for probably the wrong reason. He didn't officiate this properly. When he crossed the lane, he was looking here. When the ball went to the midcourt area, he was looking at the ball again. When the play developed, who's responsible for contact here? He's got no responsibility for this. This is the trail. The trail has responsibility for this potential contact. He should be looking here, finding that spot, getting the assessment of the secondary defender, and making a ruling. So he may have got the play right, but it was poor mechanics on his part. Again, look at his depth. No depth. His toes are pretty much on the end line. So try to use that depth and get a better angle. Now, is this proper coverage? Take a look at this play. We're going to have a player control foul called in the outside the lane. Was this an accurate ruling? Did the lead official have a good angle to rule on this play? What position adjustment could the center have made to put the crew in a better coverage? This lead is straight line. There's no way for him to assess. But what if that center had position adjusted a couple of steps to the right? All right. This is something we've added to our manual this year. This is called the crossover step. All right. This is in our manual. Happens about crew of 2, crew of 3. I want you to look at this diagram on the left right here. When you have, this is a crew of 2 situation. This trail official is following this drive to the basket. The trail moves in the same direction as the ball. He works hard to only end up being straight line. Okay. So he position adjusts into straight line position. What if he had taken 2 steps to the right and onto the court? He would have an angle between the offense and defense. This is called the crossover step. And we're teaching that this year. It happens crew of 2, crew of 3. When the ball goes left, you go right and onto the court and you'll find yourself an angle. You go in the opposite direction, 2 steps out on the court, and you will find yourself in a good angle when you drive to the basket. Sometimes you'll be obscured, but it's a lot better than following the play. If you go in the same direction, you're not going to have the angle you need. This is on pages manual 42 and 156, and it's a brand new technique that we're bringing to the IBO manual this year. This is something we took from the FIBA game, something that a Canadian official showed us a couple years ago. We liked it and we adopted it this year. hopefully you can add that to your game this season. Now, for those of you on the call that aren't RefQuest members, I encourage you to be involved. If you want to be involved, it's a video training program. We send out 2 or 3 plays a week, gives you a chance to respond to them. You can say what the ruling is, and then within 48 hours, we put out the official answer. You can compare your answer to the official answer, and by all means, you can contact me if you disagree. But it's a great tool. We have a lot of great concepts. I use a lot of Maine officials on there. I never try to embarrass anybody, but the reason I use Maine officials a lot is because I can trust that our Maine officials are going to use proper signaling. When I watch games, I watch games in 45 of the 50 states. Other states just don't have that attention to detail that we have, so I use a lot of Maine. Now, coming up this season, you'll see these same concepts talked about on RefQuest. We're going to start releasing probably short 8 to 10 minute training programs through RefQuest, and those will be released starting in November. So you'll be looking for those. If you're interested in joining that program, send me an email. I'd be glad to add you to that program. We've got about 3,400 officials within IBO in that program. We're getting great response from it, and we're getting a lot of good feedback. So if you want to join that program, by all means, let me know. Now, Bob, I'll turn it over. Anybody in the chat room have any questions?
I had one earlier, TJ, I put in the chat room about
What do you get?
crew of 3 coverage of a drive to the basket from the trails area.
Yep.
At what point does the lead take over coverage of the drive? And is he just focused on the secondary defender?
No, well, if it happens to involve a secondary defender, he's going to be responsible for it. But he'd take over the drive as soon as it enters his primary. If he gets wide, he's going to see that play. Once the offensive player gets past that primary defender, that's going to be his play to take. That the outside official stays attached to the play. That's what they call staying attached to the play. So that outside official is going to stay attached to that play all the way to the basket if it's dealing with hand checking, dealing with body bumping, dealing with a violation, any of those situations. But the lead is going to invest that time, and as that offensive player gets head and shoulders past the primary, he's going to be able to have an angle for the secondary. So there's really no set time frame as far as on the floor. It's more about what happens with the actual play. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. George, do you have a chance to, what would be your impression of RefQuest? Can you talk a little bit about that? You're on there quite a bit.
My impression of RefQuest is I can't believe some of the answers.
Yeah.
The things that are in the answers, the things they focus on, like, the coaches don't like that, or he was moving. Nothing. There's very few of us who answer in rule-based language. And I wish we could put that out there, that your answers should come from the rules and not your experience or the things that coaches say, the things that broadcasters say, and the things that officials say in error.
Yeah.
I wish we could put that out there, that try to base your answer in the rules. And I think they'd become more accurate, I think.
I will put that out there. I can do that.
Are we talking about the Donnie Epley RefQuest?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on that, yes.
Who's speaking?
George Muller right here.
So what do you think of the program?
In general, very good, because they do have situations you can slow it down, you can do all kinds of stuff with it, and they wonder why some people answer the way they do, what they actually see. So, but it's very good because it gives you a moving situation that you have to see.
Absolutely.
And ruling on. Yeah, I think it's good. It's a good thing.
Bill D'Amico, I see you on there. What's your impression? I think you're muted. Bill.
He says his microphone isn't working,
Oh, it's not working?
but he says overall it's great.
Yeah, I think we have several Maine people on there, and I got to be honest, I like the Maine responses the best. We're very lucky in Maine that we've been kind of ingrained in what George was just talking about. We have a lot of people that you scratch your head. I made fun of the group of this summer. We had a play that I thought was fairly obvious, and we had probably about 30% of the people that ruled a blocking foul, and I thought it was player control. And just for the fun of it, I recommended they get good liability insurance just to make fun of them. But we do have a great time with it. Overall, it's very beneficial. We try to come up with different play scenarios. How it generally works is I post a play every day. I put a play in the system, and Donnie Epley in the IBO office kind of picks and chooses what he posts. So I never know what he's going to choose. But once he chooses a play and puts it in the queue, I have 48 hours to put a response together. Some of those plays are 50-50, so it's hard to come up with the right answer. But we try to put every play out so it's educationally based. We never make fun of the officials. We try to make sure it's very productive, and I really recommend it to anybody in the call. Any other questions that I can handle?
TJ, on RefQuest, we can't see enough traveling, spin move, Eurostep videos. We don't see enough of them. We need to see more of those.
Yeah, well, especially, I don't know if you guys don't know this yet, but we just completed a video in RefQuest on the points of emphasis, and all of those plays are points of emphasis. Spin moves, Euro steps, jump stops, all of that. So you'll be seeing a lot of that this season.
The only difference between being on the court and watching, as I said, some of the angles aren't really good. There is a difference between being on the court, part of the play, or seeing it from a distance.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still a very, very good way of learning or observing.
Yeah, we do the best we can. Like I spend countless hours watching basketball to get those plays, so we do the best we can with angles. Sometimes the quality is not that great as far as, but you got to do the best you can with what we have, and hopefully, really, I think the real value is when the play summary comes out. There's always rules and manual-based information about the play. And we can debate some of those plays till the cows come home, but we want to make sure that we have solid rules and manual-based information to make those decisions. We posted plays last week. It was a block charge play, and I saw several people say, I'd call it a block because the feet were moving. And that's not rules-based. If they said they'd rule it a block because the defender caused contact, I can't argue with that. But as a clinician, when I see someone use non-rules-based logic to make a ruling, that's something we can address.
Yeah, TJ, Bill said something about, he said there's too much guesswork in many of the videos that we are asked to rule on.
Because of camera angles.
Yeah, well, again, we're doing the best we can. If you've got better plays, let me know. We just do the best we can. I don't think there's anybody in the country that spends more time in a video room than me, so we do the best we can. I've given them 1,500 plays over the last 3 years. So again, just do the best you can with the plays we have. Again, the real value is in the play summary. When we put it out, we put educational-based stuff. I can't do anything about the quality. I might be getting film from 18-year-old kid in California who just videotaping the game for his brother or something. So we do the best we can with that.
TJ,
anything else?
TJ, this is going to be posted on the state council website as well.
Yeah, yes, it is. And I hope people had a chance to look at that. We'll talk about that more when we talk about the fall clinics. But if you haven't already, get on the Maine Council website and see what's there. If you want to be an informed basketball official this year, everything you're going to need is going to be right in that one place. We'll definitely coordinate with the boards, but all your information as far as the main procedures guides, your tournament information, the notes from the council meetings, whatever you think is important, we're going to make sure it's on that website. All of these clinics will be on the website. It's wonderfully done. We have a young lady up there in northern Maine, a girl named Julie Goupel, has done a tremendous job putting that together. And I think it's going to be one of the best tools we have just to communicate with officials. So make sure you stay engaged. And again, as the coordinator of the state, I want to be accessible. If you've got stuff that you need from me that makes your experience in officiating better, let me know. If you have rules-based questions, please go through your interpreter first. We have a kind of a committee. If there's something that comes up that we're not sure of, the 6 of us, the 5 interpreters, myself, will get together and try to come up with a ruling for the entire state and we'll be consistent. But if there's anything that I can do to make your experience of officiating better, let us know and we'll work hard to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, but we sometimes have in-season changes in a process, procedure or something, or the MPA comes out with, that's a great place for that, just disseminate throughout the entire officiating body, so.
Well, that's one of my primary goals, not to have changes, and it kind of drives people insane when we start changing stuff. So we're really going to try to avoid that as much as possible. I just had a meeting this week with the new editor of the National Federation. Terrific young lady. I think we're going to be in really good hands going forward. But I want to caution people, anytime you get a new rules editor, that could mean interpretations change. I mean, people get upset with us when one year we tell you one thing and the next year we tell you something else. People look at things differently, and I've already heard rumors that she might change some things. But she's very reasonable. She comes from a coaching background. She's never officiated basketball, but I think she's going to be really good. So I'm optimistic going forward.
Very good.
Any other questions? I've kept you guys long enough. My drony voice is not easy to listen to for an hour.
Great job.
Yeah, my wife went to bed a half an hour ago. She's sick of hearing.
Hey, TJ, thanks. Hey, what was the website that you were talking about? I missed that. I'm sorry.
No problem. MaineBasketballCouncil.com, .org, excuse me. MaineBasketballCouncil.org.
Awesome. Thank you. Great
And
job.
if you're a
today.
young official, if you're a new official out there, and you're wondering where you are as far as your tournament eligibility, where we think you are, there is a segment on that website that you can put in your information, and it will kick back a report. I think Byron Watson's on call. He did that last week, and it shows you exactly where your eligibility is, how many career games you have, and as we get information going forward, whether you've attended the state clinic, you work in your 15 games, you've got all your information in, we'll make sure your name says eligible. So that's going to be your chance to make sure that when we send the list of schools at the end of the season, if you should be on that list, we'll make sure you're on the list. So check it out. It's a lot of fun.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
TJ.
TJ.
Thank you.
TJ, thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's Clay.
Good night, John Boy.
Night. You moving in this weekend?
Yeah, you coming down to help?
Well, I'm going to Hopies. I'm going to keep her busy. You get the boys.